Welcome to the Kapitol Life podcast. I'm your host, Abby Pagood. This is where we talk about all the things that life brings, the good, the bad, and the healthy. So, it's starting to heat up, and it's not just here in Texas, it's also starting to heat up a little bit all over the place. So some of you have gotten your nice little glimpses of the sun and some heat, and you're not sure whether to wear a t-shirt or a tank top or where you should be at. And when I start thinking about the heat and the humidity and all of those things starting to go up, I start thinking a little bit about hydration and sweat, because that's just where my mind goes. So it's also the busy season of the year, right? This is the time when we have it's end of school year. Chaos is an all-time high because there's so much on our plate. And what happens? We have a tendency to get stressed out, which then sets us up for illness and injury. So today we are going to not just talk about hydration and sweat and why it's good for us, but we're also going to talk about how to avoid the spring tornado. Okay? But before we get into it, we want to give a huge shout out to our BeInfinite.co group. They are an amazing company that helps small businesses really get their platform out and going, fine-tuning your website and all those things. This week, I had a blast on Wednesday to drive down to Dallas. I had to drive down to Dallas, which is I'm not a fan of doing that sometimes, but drive down to Dallas to go to a nice little fancy studio and do an interview with them. And that is currently being edited and should be released in the next 2-3 weeks. So I will make sure and post that so you guys can all see see how much fun it was and see how professional it looks and how fantastic it is. So I want to remind all of you guys that we have decided here at Capitol Health to do 50% off all focused programs. Now, some people are starting to ask me and say, well, Abby, what is a focused program? A focused program is a workout program that is focused for a target area. So for people that are looking to rehabilitate a arm, like a shoulder, a back, a knee, an ankle, or if they're looking to enhance their stretching and flexibility, or if they're even just trying to get some finer assets before the swimsuit season comes, there are 20 different focus programs on the website for you guys to enjoy, and you just go over there, check out which ones you have, but take advantage because it will be ending May 9th. So, hydration. Well, a lot of people just start thinking about, I don't drink enough water, right? Because water intake really helps balance the effect of things that, you imagine what water intake actually handles. Well, it's kind of interesting to know that 60% of our body weight is water weight. 60% of our weight comes from water, okay? That's just not including intracellular water and extracellular water. Intracellular water is the water inside your cells. The extracellular water is outside of your cells, okay? Water has a lot of beneficial properties outside of just keeping us hydrated. It's a big transporter of nutrients from our cells to and from. It's also kind of the insurance that certain chemical reactions are going to be in play, because if you think of what makes up water, it's hydrogen and oxygen, right? Like, you need certain things to have a chemical response, like you need oxygen in your body, you need different types of hydrogen atom bonding between your hydrogen and your oxygen. So you need to be able to make sure that you have adequate means of that in your system so that certain chemical reactions that are needed for normal body function are in play, which we really don't think about that connection being a big deal, but it really is in our functionality, especially when it comes to our organs, right? The other thing that's important is temperature regulation, okay? A lot of us have felt that time where we get really overheated, and when we get overheated, like, we end up starting to sweat, right? That's a form of temperature regulation, keeping our body nice and cool so that we don't get overheated and we're not cooking our insides. It's really important also to have proper lubrication for our joints. Okay, so a lot of times being properly hydrated also reduces some of those issues, like those aches and pains for the joints, because they need to be properly lubricated. In addition to a shock absorption. So we don't really think about it, but like our eyes kind of are in there, and water actually kind of acts as a shock absorption for our eyes, and especially our spinal cord. So that's kind of a cool thing, especially if you think about our pregnant people. If you know any pregnant women out there right now, water is a big deal in helping being a shock absorber for the fetus. So it's kind of interesting to think of it as having so many different factors. One of the really cool things is water also has a lot of mineral sources in it, which is good for our body. So it's not just about making sure you have enough in your system. It's also that there's a lot of skills that water possesses and helps us on a regular. Now, if all of that bored you and that did not convince you to drink enough water, let's discuss the opposite. So when you become dehydrated, there are some physical reactions that can occur that are not quite pleasant. So some of those things are, having a migraine or having dizziness or even confusion. Some dehydration can result into diarrhea and vomiting, fever, sweating, all these things that kind of affect our day-to-day integrity. Yes? So if you really want to think of it in a logical perspective, if your pee is not the right color, you need to drink water till it is. And when we discuss the right color of urine, we are really referring to even a clear is the goal, but even a light tinted yellow, like a light baby yellow, would be a really ideal color. If your color is starting to get dark yellow or even orange, you are way dehydrated and need to start consuming water immediately. So another way you know that if you're dehydrated is when you're thirsty. If you're starting to experience the quenched thirst, you are clearly usually a day or two behind in your hydration tactics. So it's really important to make sure that you stay properly hydrated. If you're thirsty, drink tons of water. Make sure that you catch yourself up. Now, what happens to our body when we lose water, when we become dehydrated, outside of the physical reactions that we experience, we also, the decrease actually plays in to kind of like a percentage level. So, you can go from 0.5% of water loss in comparison to 1% water loss, 2% water loss, 6%, 10%, etc. So we're going to kind of go over that list in order. So we're going to start with just 0.5% water loss can actually increase the strain on your heart, which is really interesting. In addition to a 1% water loss can reduce aerobic endurance, less water, less oxygen. So therefore your aerobic levels and breathing start to become an influential factor. 3% water loss reduces your muscular endurance, while when you get into the higher than that, into the 4% reduction, you end up experiencing muscle strength, motor skills, heat cramps. Then you go into another percent, we're talking heat exhaustion, cramping, fatigue, reduced mental capacity, and then we get into the physical exhaustion, heat stroke, coma, and then 10 to 20% reduction in water can lead to death. So it's really important. I know a lot of you guys have a hard time staying, you get up in the morning, you might take some water with your supplements, and then after that you just don't have anything until dinner. It's really important to keep your water bottle with you. There are some fantastic water bottles that have, I'm sure that you've seen that have like the time frequent that kind of encourage you to drink water basically every hour or two. And then once you get to the bottom of that water bottle, you refill it and repeat. So it's kind of nice to kind of see water bottles like that. There's another really cool, I do not know who makes it, but it's a very cool water bottle and actually blinks to remind you to drink. So not only does it have this is the quantity you should be consuming in a time spectrum, but it also blinks to remind you to get your attention so that you do stay hydrated as you should. So I would highly recommend investing in a water bottle or something like that and get used to carrying it with you, because when you need it, you need it. Because we definitely don't want to experience all the fun side effects that comes in play with that. So when it's heated and it's hot outside, what ends up happening? We start getting a little bit sweaty. Now, sometimes some people have a tendency to think of sweat as being kind of gross and nasty, but it's a very beneficial temperature regulator. It helps keep your body nice and cool. But what happens when you sweat, you're also losing salts when you sweat. Okay, so it's not just a combination of losing water, it's also a combination of losing salt. So when you have that drop in sodium, essentially, it also starts to influence your electrolyte balance. So that is where, when you think about your athletes, right, you'll see a lot of sports drinks that are promoting electrolytes, okay? And the reason for that is when you're sweating and exercising, you're losing a form of those electrolytes, which those electrolytes really maintain like the electrical functions of the body, such as like your nerves and your muscle responses. So when you really are trying to stay in the game and making sure your body is readily participating as it's supposed to, it's readily activating as it's supposed to with those electrical units, you need your electrolytes to not be extremely depleted, which is why it's important to consume and stay hydrated so that you don't have to experience. Now, you start thinking, well, why is sweating good for you if you are losing your electrolyte balance? Well, sweating is actually not just being a temperature regulator, it also detoxifies your body. So things like heavy metals that get in our system, chemicals that we're exposed to externally, those things actually get released when we sweat. That's why kind of saunas is such a great idea, because it's releasing those toxins into our body. Which is really nice on a beauty level is that when you're having that fluctuation of pore sizing, it actually helps with your body. You're releasing the toxins from your pores, and then it's kind of, and that constant change in pore shape also helps kind of make your face feel nice and fresh and clean, okay? So if you want to really get rid of that, cleanse yourself of any bacteria, cleanse yourself of any metals, any kind of chemical exposures that we have on a regular, because our world it's just part of living, okay? You can't run away from all of it. You can't scrub everything to death and get rid of everything. It's just part of the natural order and things, but part of the self-care is ensuring that you sweat. And sometimes you can do that via sauna, and then other times you can also do that through exercise. People that are known to exercise on a frequent level usually have lower toxicity levels than those that don't. And the reason is sweating. So get yourself out there and start sweating away, okay? If you're finding any of this information helpful, I just encourage you guys to click the like button, share, and subscribe. You can always catch us, the Kapitol Life podcast, on YouTube. You can find it on Facebook. You can also find it on your podcasting forums such as Anchor and Spotify, in addition to iHeartRadio. So let's get into the spring tornado. It's been a long day. Tornado, okay? It's the end of the school year. This is when we totally are in the hustle and bustle, okay? We've got Easter and Passover and all the activities from that. Then a couple weeks later, we've got Mother's Day. We have end of school recitals. We have the end of season games. And we have new season games for the summer that are starting. This is when we have all kinds of activities. It doesn't matter if you have the kids, you don't have the kids, you go for a friend, you go for a niece or nephew, you go because it's the grandkids. All of us are just super busy. People are waking up because they've been in their kind of winter slumber, which is great because people start just becoming more alive, they're becoming more active, they're being more in play. But this is also when there seems to be a lot of overcommitments and everything seems to land on the same frickin' day. So when that happens, the demands that's placed on the body is to keep up with the pace of play, which the first thing that people do is they have a tendency to sacrifice from their own schedule so that they have enough time to get through everything. But the worst thing is when we sacrifice from ourselves from those things, one, we kind of lose a little bit of our sanity, which means we have a tendency to go a little bit bonkers on people because we start feeling overworked, overwhelmed, overstressed, lack of time, and that's really starts playing on our body. When we have that stress reaction, our body starts to kind of go into this stress response, which then allows our immune system to drop. Either that or our body starts to not behave as it needs to. So that's usually when like someone gets a crick in their neck, they pull their back, something has to give, okay, to provide rest so that you get the rest that you need, because we're just not machines. If we were, we'd be all bionic, okay? So it's really important to make sure that you're taking the time for your sanity so you don't set yourself up for injury or illness. So it's all about making sure we're doing that initial preparation. We need to do our preparation not just for our physical body demands to which we need to have during our spring tornado, but also making sure that we're mentally prepared as well, which sometimes that mental preparation is as simple as just making sure our time management is going according to plan. Now, if you're focusing on the list, like you're looking at the calendar, you're finding the list of things to do, you're trying to make sure you plot in when you have the time to run your errands or get children to or from or what have you, the important thing is to also ensure that you're putting time in for that self-care. Okay, and that self-care can be as simple as just taking 3 minutes to do some breathing exercises. Now, if you caught me a couple podcasts ago, we talked about the reaction of the breathing response on the body, right, on the heart chakra, and how taking in breath in a timely fashion, and if you didn't watch it, you should go back and watch it right now. But what is really great is that slowing your breath down calms down the body so that it understands that it's not in a dangerous state, okay? So breathing techniques help slow the heart rate down, which then tells the brain that it's safe and it's okay, which then makes the body react to say, I am not in a flight or fight mode, okay? And in that return, that means that that stress response kind of gets eliminated a little bit, so that it gets eliminated so that you're not in a stress reactive state to which your immune system or injury would ensue. So that's super really important to make sure. Just even breathing techniques is huge. And it doesn't take long. It could just even be at a stoplight, taking a moment to breathe. The other thing to really start to keep in mind is your mindset, okay? Your mindset is envisioning what the day brings, but clearing the path so that it goes in a smooth course. So a lot of times when we start to think about everything that's coming our way, we will become overwhelmed. It's a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I gotta do this, and then I gotta do this, and then I gotta do that, and then blah. Like anytime I call my husband when he's at work, that is the exact thing. I can tell when he's feeling overwhelmed. That's when you have to really focus on one task at a time, staying in the moment. But on a mental level, we can take it to a whole nother, we can upgrade it a little bit and be more prepared if we mentally kind of envision. So a lot of times what I like to do in preparation for my day, specifically on a Friday and Saturday, because those have a tendency to be some of my busiest, and one on top of the other appointments, one appointment after the next. So what I do is, as I'm waking up, I will set my alarm clock a little bit earlier, and even though I have my alarm clock on a snooze, I will essentially allow myself to, in that snooze time, not go back to sleep, but kind of stay in a meditative, peaceful state. And I will kind of plot my day and where it's going. So I imagine, okay, I'm going to be getting up, I'm going to be getting dressed, I'm going to smoothly go downstairs, get my the things I need to leave the house, whether it's my protein shake on the go or my coffee tea. It's not real coffee, it's just a tea that tastes like coffee. And then head out to the door. Then I imagine myself as I'm going from each appointment to the next, but I have a nice, peaceful, graceful, smooth approach to each location, right? So it creates just this nice, cushy feel for the day. It kind of also puts me in a nice, peaceful place. So as I'm driving from one place to the next, if I get cut off, I'm not being overwhelmed and overworked. I'm kind of like, oh, okay, we're good. We're still going. We're safe. We're fine. And so it really kind of just helps get you into that mental energy. Now, if you're having a hard time kind of getting the oomph that you need for the day, you're feeling a little bit sluggish, start kind of envisioning what you feel like when you do have the energy, okay? Kind of have a you don't have to have a conversation, but you can have like that internal mindset conversation with envisioning who you are when you're at your top-notch speed, when you've got that energy. Kind of feed off of it. Use that energy is kind of this fun transitional thing. It's everywhere. You can pull it from any direction, any dimension, any place that you want to. So it's kind of connect to that energy, embrace it in, and kind of just drive it into your system, and it'll help kind of give you a little bit of boost when you need it, okay? The other thing that I think is really important is that when we're going back and forth and we're going to and from, it's really important to do the simpler thing that's not going to stress you out, and don't judge yourself for taking that road, okay? It's important for you guys to know that it's okay that in the time of cramming, in the time of need, you can just play it simple. So sometimes it's like, I didn't have time to cook dinner. It's just going to be easier to pick food up. Instead of feeling guilty that you're feeding your food junk for the day, it doesn't have to be junk. It can be from anywhere. But the point is, you have to feed the family. Did you get them fed? Don't worry about it and move forward. Okay? Keep it simple. Don't overthink things, because right now you don't have the time to overthink things because you're too busy making sure that you're staying on top of your things to do. Okay? The spring tornado is no joke. So do what you need to do. Don't overthink it, and envision a peaceful, happy, balanced place as you're trying to maintain through the weathering storm. Okay? That's all we're talking about today. So thanks for joining me on the Kapitol Life, where we talk about all the things. Join me next week at Saturday at 5:30. And don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, share the Kapitol Life. We are always broadcasting on Kapitol Health at Facebook and YouTube, in addition to our social media platforms. And I just have to remind you guys to take care of yourself, because you're somebody's everything. Take care, guys.